We have Dave Lamont joining us from down in WIOD, down in Miami, Florida. He does the morning news show there. And Dave, first off, I want to hit this. This obviously, with Florida being such a swing state, very important as far as the election goes. We remember back the last two elections. Florida's been one of the three states that everybody always seems to be looking at. Ohio in there as well, but Florida's very important. And Barack Obama, who seems to have the nomination all sewn up here. Is he going to be able to get Florida back? I mean, I know he's trying to get some goodwill, unite the party. He was down in Tampa Bay yesterday. What are your thoughts on what he can do to kind of bring himself to the Florida voters? Because obviously he got demolished by Hillary Clinton, and a lot of people don't feel like he's fighting for their right to vote.
Yeah, he's going to have to come from way back to do it. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he wasn't even on the ballot, pretty much. I mean, he didn't come to campaign. I shouldn't say he wasn't on the ballot, but he didn't even come to campaign at the request of the Democratic National Committee, because of that whole big business about delegates, which won't even be talked about again until May 31st. So he fell into a hole here. His big ability has been to win people over with his charisma, with his speech making. His platform seems to be winning a lot of people. Obviously, he's winning many states. But Florida is skeptical. Whether he's going to be able to solve that going up to the central and western parts of the state, being in South Florida today and Friday, it's going to be hard. There are a lot of people you're right, there are a lot of people who believe that Hillary Clinton stayed with them. Now, of course, it's convenient for her to stay with them because they voted for her. Had the results gone the other way around, who knows how this thing would turn out. But also, John McCain did a nice job through here, and he got latched onto a popular governor in Charlie Crist. So that combination may make it difficult for either candidate, most likely it would be Obama, to take the state in November.
And McCain himself has a strong base down there of supporters, and they really did come through for him, as you spoke about in the Florida primary. Why don't you help kind of explain the state a little bit as far as what we might be seeing come November? What parts of the states would McCain be strong in? What parts of the states could Obama be strong in? Because likely he is going to end up being the nominee.
Well, for John McCain, Florida is really two states in one. If you slice a small bit of the state from about where Palm Beach is, West Palm Beach, all the way down to Key West, and you might want to consider the southwest coast, but slice that and move it away, that's mostly Democratic. Everything else is mostly Republican. Now, the odd thing about Florida is the further north you go in Florida, the more southern the state becomes. You're closer to the Panhandle area, abuts Alabama, of Jacksonville, of course, practically in the backyard of Georgia. And a lot of those same ideals have filtered into Florida. So that's a conservative area. That's going to play very poorly for Obama. Orlando and Tampa are kind of funny. They're kind of big city wannabes. Tampa is old school Florida. Orlando is a really mixed up area. And those areas may be in play a little bit. The southern end is usually dominated by Democrats, particularly around Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach. Miami area can go both ways. You win Miami by winning the Hispanic vote. And that is something the Democrats feel like they can do very strongly for the first time in a while. Republicans have had a tough time in this state getting across immigration, which obviously to the Hispanic community is very, very critical. At the moment, I think if you can get across anything that's good for the economy, you're going to win the state, because that's become the number one issue here as well. We've got runaway inflation at times. Some of the worst rates in the country is in South Florida, and some of the worst gas prices in the country are in South Florida. But the problem that Barack Obama is going to face, and he may ultimately decide he just can't do anything about it, is convince the older voters, the more conservative voters of Northwest Florida, Northeast Florida, and even parts of Central Florida that he's a good gamble.
And Dave Lamont joining us from WIOD Radio down in Miami, Florida. Now, you talk about he might give up on Florida, and people have also mentioned the fact, that he's not very popular in states that Democrats need to be popular in, and that's part of Hillary Clinton's, what her basic complaint's been, that she says she's the better candidate because she can win the Pennsylvanias. She thinks she could win a Florida. She obviously did do very well in the primary there, especially in the fact that basically everybody knew that there was nothing to do there as far as delegates wise. I mean, she not only blew Barack Obama out of the water, she blew McCain out of the water when you look at overall votes. But if he gives up on states like that and he's trying to win some of those states that the Democrats normally aren't strong in and try to steal them, like, how does he basically form a campaign where he can run on a national platform if there's states like Florida that he really needs to be competitive in and possibly steal a couple of those that he's not going to be able to?
Well, I'm not saying he'll give up on Florida. You can't do that. You have to hit Florida very hard, and we'll see what happens with this first wave of his campaign coming to town. It's very difficult to gauge how this is going to play because there's no primary right now. You know, he's playing this as if he's the presumptive nominee, and as you've said, he pretty much is. There are southern states are going to be a huge struggle for him, and, you know, you hate to say why, but clearly race is going to be a factor. It has shown up in some of the smaller southern states, and even in places like Pennsylvania. Obama's got to get through some of the statements that have been made about him that aren't necessarily true, but people believe them. You know, if you lose 1 or 2 out of 10 voters because they think you're unpatriotic, or they lose 1 or 2 out of 10 voters because they think you're a Muslim, or that you took the oath of office at the Senate on the Quran rather than the Bible, and some of the things that are being said, then that's going to be difficult for him to overcome some of the minds here. Some of the older folks in South Florida, for example, don't trust him. They don't know that much about him. And they're, you know, the quotes that I read at Hillary Clinton rallies yesterday were, I don't think I can vote for this guy, even if he gets the nomination. The Democrats' biggest problem, as always, Democrats. If they can stop beating each other up and unify the party, I think they've got an excellent chance, not just to win Florida, but win the whole thing and have a huge election. But if they cannot heal their bruises, they're gone. Even with Obama's so-called popularity and his ability to draw crowds and all that, it may not translate into people who are going to vote, and a lot of people are still going to make up their minds at the last minute.
Now, Dave, were you surprised about how Florida was handled as far as, you know, we'd spoken with Leslie Clark of the Miami Herald, who's their Washington correspondent, and, you know, she said that, you know, she had told me that she thought that Howard Dean probably would be out after the after the Democratic convention happened. The way he's handled this has been very poor. Were you surprised about how it's been handled also in Michigan as well, but in Florida since you're down there? Were you surprised?
It's disappointing is what I would say. As a Florida voter, you know, you want everything to count, and you want to feel like you're part of the process. And for the Florida voters to be told that, you know, you can come out if you'd like. We've got a few little referendums that you want to vote on or a judgeship or whatever, but this presidency, and Republicans too, by the way, are only getting half a delegate, so you know, it's not nearly as publicized as the Democratic problems are because their votes didn't count at all. It's very discouraging. I don't understand how it got to this point. It became a clash of wills and egos, and it became very self-serving. And you know, if I were paying money to the Democratic National Committee, I wouldn't pay money to the Democratic National Committee. I'd send them a little note with my next mailing saying, I'll give you $20 the next time you get me a guy who knows how to run that party. Get Howard Dean out of there. I would think he's got to go, and try to find somebody in there, whoever that may be. And I couldn't think of a name off the top of my head who may be more capable to run the party and not make people angry. People are angry about this, and they shouldn't be. Democrats ought to be saying to themselves, what an opportunity we have, in their view, to reclaim the White House, reclaim the Congress, and have enough of a majority to actually do something. There's their chance. And again, their own worst, you know, what's the old expression? We have met the enemy, and he is us.